You've probably used it on dry lips, cracked heels, or maybe a stubborn patch of winter skin. But what if I told you that smooth, clear jelly you've been trusting for years started out as thick, dark crude oil pulled straight from the ground? Yeah, the same stuff used to power jet engines and fuel cars. It doesn't sound like something you'd rub on your face, right? But here's the kicker. Vaseline isn't just a skincare product. It's a petroleum byproduct. And its journey from toxic oil sludge to a trusted household staple is one of the strangest transformations in consumer history. This isn't your average skincare story. It's got oil rigs, accidental discoveries, old-school chemistry, and a few rumors the big brands would rather you not think too hard about. So before you dip your fingers into that familiar jar again, you might want to hear the full story. Because what Vaseline really is might just change the way you look at it forever. Back in 1859, oil drilling was still a new frontier. In the dusty oil fields of Titusville, Pennsylvania, workers weren't just battling the earth to strike black gold. They were also dealing with a strange, sticky problem. A gooey, wax-like substance kept building up on their drilling rigs. They called it rod wax, and at first it was just a nuisance, gumming up machines, clogging valves, and slowing everything down. But then something unexpected happened. Some of the roughnecks started rubbing the stuff on burns, cuts, and scrapes. And strangely enough, it seemed to help. Word spread fast. This annoying byproduct of oil drilling was suddenly being talked about like some kind of backwoods miracle salve. Enter Robert Chesebrew, a 22-year-old British-American chemist with a nose for opportunity. When he heard about this so-called healing goo, he didn't laugh it off. He got obsessed. He traveled to Pennsylvania, saw rod wax firsthand, and took samples back to his lab in Brooklyn. There, he began experimenting, refining, distilling, purifying. Eventually, he came up with a cleaner, stable version of the oily substance. In 1872, he gave a name, Vaseline, a blend of the German word for water, Wasser, and the Greek word for oil, Elaine. Water and oil, fused into one smooth, slippery product. But Vaseline wasn't just sold as a... Here's the part most people never think about. Vaseline, yes, the one in your medicine cabinet, starts as crude oil. That same thick, black, sludgy stuff that comes bubbling out of the earth. It smells like gasoline, stains everything it touches, and is packed with chemicals and toxins you definitely wouldn't want on your skin. Crude oil is a chaotic mix of hydrocarbons, basically chains of carbon and hydrogen. And when it's extracted, it doesn't come out in neat little packages. It's a mess. But thanks to refining, that mess gets sorted out in very precise ways. At massive oil refineries, crude is pumped into huge distillation towers, where it's heated to extreme temperatures. As the oil gets hotter, its components start to separate based on how quickly they boil. The lightest stuff, gasoline, propane, jet fuel, floats to the top. But down at the bottom, that's where the heavier, waxier materials settle. The stuff that doesn't burn off. The leftovers. That's where petroleum jelly comes from. Let that sink in for a second. Vaseline is made from the thick, tar-like residue that even jet fuel leaves behind. But before you panic, no, you're not rubbing raw oil sludge on your face. Not yet, anyway. That heavy residue undergoes a process so intense, so specific, that it turns something toxic into something medically approved. And it's not just about removing the smell or color. It's about making something industrial clean enough to go on your lips. And believe it or not, it works, but not without serious transformation. So how exactly do they turn industrial oil residue into something clean enough to put on a newborn baby's skin? It starts with vacuum distillation, a method that heats the residue under low pressure. Why low pressure? Because it lets the material boil at lower temperatures without breaking its chemical structure. That's key to keeping the jelly stable and effective. Next comes one of the most important stages, decolorization and purification. The jelly is filtered through materials like bleaching clay or activated carbon, which strip out impurities, odors, and anything even remotely toxic. This step is brutal on contaminants, but gentle enough to leave the good stuff intact. By this point, the substance is almost unrecognizable. It goes from a dark, smelly sludge to a clear, odorless, semi-solid gel. This version is known as white petroleum jelly, and it's the pure base used in Vaseline. But they're still not done. Not even close. Before it ever hits a store shelf, every batch is tested for a specific group of chemicals called PAHs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. These are compounds naturally found in crude oil, and some are known to be carcinogenic in large or prolonged exposure. So manufacturers filter, refine, and test until those levels are either eliminated entirely or reduced to trace amounts so small they're within global health safety standards. Only after passing this gauntlet does the jelly become legally and medically approved for cosmetic and therapeutic use. So yes, you're technically putting a refined oil byproduct on your skin. But by the time it reaches you, it's gone through more testing than most foods you eat. And the wild part? That's not even where the story ends. Once the petroleum jelly is purified, it's no longer the oily mess it started out as. Now it's a smooth, clear base, ready to become Vaseline. But even at this stage, it's still warm, soft, and completely odorless. So what happens next? The jelly gets pumped into giant stainless steel mixing vats, where it's stirred slowly to maintain a consistent texture. For the classic version of Vaseline, the one in the iconic white and blue jar, no extra ingredients are added. No scents, no additives, just the pure, refined jelly. But for other versions, this is where companies might mix in vitamin E, aloe, or light fragrances, especially for cosmetic lines. Even then, the formula is tightly controlled. Every batch has to match exact standards for color, texture, and purity. While still warm and semi-liquid, the jelly is pumped into sterilized containers, those familiar little tubs or tubes, using ultra-clean filling machines. Timing here is key. If the jelly cools too soon, it thickens and becomes harder to work with. If it's too hot, the packaging can warp. Once it's sealed and labeled, the product is basically immortal. Vaseline doesn't spoil. It doesn't grow mold. It doesn't go rancid. Why? Because it's inert. It doesn't react with other substances. That's why it's been stored in first aid kits, hospital cabinets, and makeup bags for over a century. From massive refinery tanks to the tiny jar on your bathroom counter, every step is a transformation. From something the oil industry used to throw away to something people now trust with their skin. But here's what really surprises people. It's not just about skincare. Vaseline's real power comes from how it works. And that's what we'll break down next. Here's what most people get wrong about Vaseline. It doesn't moisturize your skin. Not really. What it does is something even smarter. It locks in the moisture that's already there. Vaseline creates a seal, a barrier. Think of it like putting plastic wrap over a leaky container. It keeps water from evaporating out of your skin while also blocking irritants from getting in. That's what makes it so effective on dry, cracked skin, chapped lips, minor burns, and cuts. It doesn't add hydration. It preserves it. And that barrier also protects against wind, cold air, and pollution. It's like a shield for your skin. But there's more. Vaseline is non-comedogenic, meaning it won't clog pores for most people. That's surprising when you consider how greasy it feels. But molecularly, it's too large to sink into your pores deeply. It just sits on top. That's why it's become a quiet favorite in places you wouldn't expect. Marathon runners use it to prevent chafing. Newborn care routines rely on it for diaper rashes, and makeup artists use it to add shine or create a dewy glow on camera. It's simple, cheap, and incredibly effective. Not because it's high-tech, but because it does one thing really well: protect. And the best part? It hasn't really changed in over 150 years. But even after all that, there's still one question that sticks in people's minds. Is it safe? After all, it's made from oil. Let's clear that up next. It's natural to wonder if something made from oil residue is really safe to put on your skin every day. After all, crude oil sounds like the last thing you'd want near your face. Here's the deal. The intense refining and purification process removes the harmful stuff, the chemicals and carcinogens that might be lurking in raw crude oil. That's not just marketing talk. It's backed by decades of medical approval, safety testing, and regulations around the world. The petroleum jelly in Vaseline is considered non-toxic, hypoallergenic, and safe for sensitive skin by dermatologists globally. It's even used in hospitals for wound care and in baby products for delicate skin. That said, some people with extremely sensitive skin might experience irritation or breakouts, but that's rare. And because Vaseline forms a thick barrier, it's best not to apply it to infected wounds without medical advice. It could trap bacteria inside. There are always rumors and debates online about petroleum-based products. Some claim long-term risks, but current scientific evidence shows that the refined jelly used in Vaseline is safe when used as directed. So the next time you hesitate because of its oily origin, remember, Vaseline is one of the most thoroughly tested and trusted skincare products in history. But its story isn't just about safety. It's about legacy, transformation, and a surprisingly complex journey from oil rigs to your medicine cabinet. So there it is, Vaseline. What starts as a sticky, smelly byproduct from deep underground oil fields ends up as one of the most trusted, simple skincare products in the world. It's not glamorous. It's not flashy, but it's reliable. Over 150 years, it's quietly transformed from a messy nuisance called rod wax into a refined, medically approved gel that millions rely on daily. Next time you open that jar or squeeze that tube, remember the journey behind it. From rough oil drilling rigs to towering refineries to the exacting tests that ensure it's safe and effective. Sometimes, the most ordinary things hide the most extraordinary stories. Vaseline is one of them. Thanks for watching. If you got ideas for what simple product story we should explore next, drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around for more stories behind everyday, things you thought you knew.